you, Beth. Thank you so much for having us on the webinar tonight. As Beth Wofford said, my name is Mary Margaret. I was actually born in Fort Worth, Texas, but I've lived in North Carolina the majority of my adult life. And at the early years of my life, I had a compassion and interest in health occupations in high school. And I continued that education on into college as I pursued my nursing career by working at a local nursing home. And this picture shows that my great-grandmother actually was in the nursing home. And that was one of the things that really sparked that desire in me, seeing her in the nursing home and the things that she was challenged with. I thought that I could become a nurse and change the world all by myself. But this is the lady that I actually worked for in the nursing home when I was younger, and I found out really quick that the problem was bigger than one person can handle on their own. And after I finished my nursing degree, I actually went on to get an engineering degree, and I worked in the field of engineering for about 30 years of my adult life. And during those 30 years, I will have to say that that desire to help people with their health never left me. During the last 10 years of my engineering career, I actually worked for a firm here in Wilson called IMCO, where I actually designed modalities to ensure safe delivery of fuel from the tank to your vehicle. So that was a pretty interesting job that I had. But while I was there, I really started to develop a strong vision and conviction to start an organic dairy farm in Snow Hill, North Carolina. And so as I pursued this 40-hour work week job, I also worked at starting Be Nourished Farm and Retreat. And every morning before I went to work, and every evening after I got home, I would done. And I never knew as a young child that I would be following in the footsteps of my mom working on a farm as she did when she was younger. So that's something that really touches my heart. So in 2000, the farm was actually established. Crops and also some row crops. And I built a chicken tractor out of a boat trailer that I got from my brother so that I could move it around on the farm from square to square. And then we also had some goats that we had for cleaning out different areas of the farm. We had some meat goats in the very beginning. And then we got some milk goats. A lot of fun because I would breed them every winter, and then come spring I had my own circus. All these baby goats would come out and would be so much fun to play with, a bunch of jumping around. We fed them with Pepsi bottles full of milk from their moms. A lot of people came out and actually had a chance to enjoy the farm, but the young goats are always a spark of fun in the springtime. We also have baby chicks on the farm that we raise for egg production. So kids get to come by and play with those as well. So they grow up to be big hens laying eggs. And we also have some pilgrim geese on the farm. And they definitely believe that farm life is great. So then in 2007, after I had the farm for about 7 years, I married Gary Donoho. And we started our journey on the farm, working the farm together. And so that was myself. And after we had been married for about a year, I started noticing some physical changes in my body. After this, we started acquiring some cows and having calves of our own. They were a lot of fun. We would keep the female calves to make adult cows out of them, and we were growing our own herd and learning how to make dairy products from the raw milk. We got to experience new life coming into the world for the purpose of nourishment of other people that came to the farm. And also, our farm became more than just a place to get food, because it also became a place of ministry to children that were facing mental and emotional challenges. And so we enjoyed that aspect of the farm as well. But then a couple of years after Gary and I were married, the company that I had worked for 10 years decided that they were going to let me go. And so I started working full-time at the farm, basically walking out my vision that I had had while I was working at IMCO. And Gary continued his work away from the farm. But I think it was about a couple of years after that, Gary started working on the farm full-time because the farm was really growing. And I had started to notice some physical issues developing and happening more regularly in my joints. I discovered that my body was dealing with an autoimmune condition that I did not know the answer to, and I had tried everything natural, food-wise, to help with the pain because that was all I knew. But despite all of that, days became harder for me, and I could no longer open the jars, shake people's hands. It was difficult and painful to do that, and I could no longer help Gary on the farm as much as I did before. So his workload increased. I refused the meds that were available because I felt responsible for my health and wellness, which I had for years, and I believed that God created my body to heal itself. So little by little, the good life didn't feel so good anymore. And then in 2013, whenever my condition was at its worst, I was introduced to Redox molecules. And it didn't take me long to discover that it was the solution for my health concerns. So after 7 weeks of replenishing my body with these Redox molecules, I got my life back. The inflammation and symptoms from the autoimmune condition that I had been struggling with for over 5 years were gone, and life on the farm was good again. It was great to get hours of sleep at night instead of just sleeping 3 to 5, and it was just good to wake up knowing that the day was going to be better, and a lot of the damage that I had experienced was going away. So I was just overjoyed with the fact that I had my life back. So I'm thankful for that. And one of the things I'm thankful for is that my husband, Gary, is the one that convinced me to go ahead and start using these Redox molecules in my body. And so I'm going to turn it over to him for a few minutes for him to tell his experience with these Redox molecules. Gary?
Thank you, Mary Margaret. Great to be with everybody this evening. Glad you could join us on this animal call. Thank you, Beth Wofford, for inviting us to share a little bit tonight with you. It's been about a 3.5-year journey for Mary Margaret and I with these amazing Redox molecules, and we are just so blessed to have them as part of our farm. I'm going to tell you a few things about how I use these molecules on our farm in a few minutes, but I guess I'll start off first and foremost by saying that when I started to drink the product with Mary Margaret, that in the first 2 or 3 weeks that I was actually drinking the molecules, I noticed that my sleep quality as well was greatly improved. I had some definitely sustained energy throughout the day. It wasn't like I had any big energy burst or anything, but it just seemed like I had enough energy to get done what I needed to do. And back 3.5 years ago, I think our workload was quite a bit more strenuous than it is today. I've got things streamlined a little bit more now, and it isn't quite the overall effort that it used to take to run this place. But I also noticed that thinking improved. Just the way I was able to calmly deal with things day to day seemed to be improved quite a bit. The other main thing that happened for me as far as running a farm was, I will get into this a little in the future, but I don't have a tractor here. I do everything with my 4-wheel drive pickup truck, and some people say that's a big mistake to try to run a farm without a tractor, but just have never convinced myself to spend that money. And so because of that, I've injured myself several times doing things I probably shouldn't be doing, and I've hurt my shoulder pretty bad, and I've also injured my knee. And for probably 2 to 3 years before I got a hold of these amazing molecules, I had constant pain in this one shoulder and in my left knee, and it was a daily thing I had to deal with. But I noticed probably 4 to 8 weeks, somewhere in there, after drinking the product, that my pain went away. And I was convinced that they were both going to come back as soon as my workload got busy in the summer. but it didn't. And I've just been so grateful for that. It just makes my day so much easier to not have to deal with pain on a daily basis. And so all of that combined, it's just been a great benefit to me overall to be able to have these molecules available to me every day. The last thing I'll add is the one thing I'm doing to myself almost on a weekly basis out here because of the nature of all the fencing that we have is I get cut. And it is so amazing the way spraying these molecules on an open cut will stop the bleeding within minutes and also help it to heal incredibly quickly. So almost weekly, I'm grateful to have this spray available to me. Thank you.
Okay, so because of our personal experiences with the Redox molecules, we don't hesitate to use these on our animals when they're faced with challenges. And this is one of those instances. Sometimes when our goats kid, they get inflammation in their udder, and it's usually hot and painful and normally treated with antibiotics. But we, having an organic farm, don't like to use medicine on the farm. So since we had a strong belief in the product, I decided the year after we first started using these to use the molecules on my goat to treat her udder. So what I did is I placed some milk on this first square up here at the right, and you'll notice the little box at the top shows yellow or orange is normal and blue is not. So when we look down here at these cards, when I put the milk on the card, it changes color to tell me whether it's okay or not. So the first one over here in the top left is the first squirt, and so it's bad. So I put some Redox molecules up inside the teat, and 12 hours later, I tested it again, and 2 ounces up in the teat. And then 12 hours after that, which was 24 hours later, I tested it again, and it was almost clear, but not quite. But then 12 hours later, which was 36 hours, the teat was perfectly fine. Now, normally, if this would happen and you would have to medicate the goat, it would take at least 2 weeks to notice the difference in the card. And not only that, but you have a 3-week withdrawal time of the milk. So we're thankful to have these molecules to use in this situation because, number one, the kids can still drink the milk. The goat kids can still drink the milk. And also, we can put the goat back in the herd more readily because there is no milk withdrawal time because the molecules are native to the body. And so this is a benefit to us in a big way. And so then the next instance we have is our cow Ginger. And I'm going to let Gary tell you the story, but just a background on Ginger. Winter of 2016, the beginning of the year, and Ginger was 6 weeks away from delivering her calf, and she went down in the back pasture, and we didn't know why. Gary's going to get into that, but Ginger weighs about Ginger that we do not have a tractor. And Ginger could not get up on her own, and we could not get her up. So the picture right here, we're looking at her left foot, and it is in a lot of pain. So Gary, how about telling the rest of the story?
Well, Ginger has a lot of stories. Ginger is probably what we would consider to be our problem child here on the farm. We treat all our animals as if they're pets. I mean, normally we've got a herd of anywhere from 12 to 20 cattle on the premises, and Ginger just happens to be the one that seems to get into trouble more than anybody else. But we like her really well, and we always wanted to keep her around, and we didn't want to sell her, and so we've gone the extra mile to take care of Ginger. So I'm going to just share one particular story because I really believe that if it wasn't for these amazing Redox molecules that we have available to us, that she would no longer be with us. Ginger was on the ground for over 3 weeks. And anybody will tell you that knows anything about cows that if they're laying down for more than 2 weeks, the chances that you're going to get them up and walking around again aren't very good. And the one thing that we noticed about Ginger, though, is she would not give up. She was drinking the molecules daily, and she was trying to move every day. We had her in the back pasture to start with, and every time you'd go back there to check on her, she had moved 4 to 5 feet just pulling herself with her front legs. And Mary Margaret told me, she said, well, if Ginger's not giving up, then we're not giving up. And so I just went ahead and said, okay, we're going to play this out until the end. And we thought that Ginger had milk fever, being she was only 6 weeks away from having a calf. Normally that is something that happens with an older cow. They have a calcium deficiency. They get so weak in their back legs that they cannot stand up. And we thought that's what the issue was, but we called a friend of ours, and he got her up with his front end loader tractor, and we walked her with a strap on her up to the front pasture. And then that's when we figured out that she had separated where her hoof joins her back leg. It had just come loose there. It was almost dangling free. And I'd never seen that happen before, and I really don't know anybody that had to deal with that before. So we figured out that the only way we were going to be able to save that cow was, first of all, to get her to calve. And so that's one of the very few times we've ever called a vet out to our farm. But we had a vet come out, and he gave her a shot to induce labor. And a couple days later, there's the calf that I had to pull out of Ginger while she laid on the ground and looked at me like I was some crazy person. But it took an hour and a half to get that calf out of her, but finally that happened. And once we got the calf out, then we were able to call our friend back with the tractor, and he was nice enough to let us keep the tractor. And here you see the strap that we used with pillows to lift Ginger up and hold her up for a couple hours at a time. And then once we were able to do that, then Mary Margaret was able to devise a splint to put on her leg. That's what you see down there at the bottom. And between her being able to stand up and eat her hay a couple hours a day, and between her being able to drink her molecules every morning and every night, and between her having that splint on her leg, within the next 3 to 4 days, things got better. And we were amazed. But it was over 3, maybe 3.5 weeks before Ginger actually was able to be up and around on her own. And not only that, with the temperature at that particular time happened to be in the low 20s during the day and in the teens at night. So that didn't help matters either. But here you see her just trying her best to put weight on that leg after we got her up. But it was an amazing time. We really were kind of struggling with whether Ginger was going to make it or not. But like I said, I give a lot of credence to the fact that she had those molecules available to her every day while she was laying on that cold ground while she was out there in the pasture. So just to know that she's up and about and being milked every day and she's good and healthy right now is amazing. I guess I'll share one other little thing that Mary Margaret probably will try to show you, that she has an extended and it's been that way ever since we got her 5 years ago, and never been an issue. But I guess because of all that time she spent on the ground, that little extension there at the bottom of her stomach, at least the size of a quarter, probably close to the size of a $50. And what I started doing, I had no way to bandage it that I knew of. And it was dripping blood, and water is kind of just gross to even talk about. But we sprayed the molecules on that wound, probably 2 to 3 ounces every morning when I brought her in. And then every evening when I brought her in to milk her the second time, we sprayed again. And just over the next 3 to 5 days, that wound just on its own was within a week, maybe 10 days, that thing completely healed over. The hair grew back over, and now you can't even tell where it was. But I was very concerned about that as well, because I just didn't know what the answer was for that, other than having those amazing molecules in my medical bag to be able to take care of her with. So thank you for these molecules, and there's the proof that Ginger is still here with us, and we may even see a little bit of her before the time is over.
One thing I'll say about Ginger before I go on to our red healer, Georgia, is that while she was laying down and dealing with that for over 2 or 3 weeks, all the pain and just the lack of circulation in her body, I could tell that her skin was breaking down. She was losing hair. A lot of things were going on in her body. So we increased her molecules to the point that she was, drinking 16 ounces a day there towards the end, because of her body needing that much. So thankful that Ginger is definitely still with us.